Are you someone who has ever experienced being misunderstood? Or maybe someone said you've judged too quickly, or you were made to feel like you're just too much just because the world sees you differently. Hey everyone, my name is Lorraine Chai, the host of Solo to Entrepreneur Show, and welcome in today's episode. Now let me hit you with this first. People will decide who you are in seconds before you even speak. They will look at your face, your vibe, your calmness, your confidence, and they will create a story about you. This is called reading body language, reading someone. And here's the question. Are you going to live in their story, or are you going to write your own? What do I mean by that? I'm not the kind of person who shares everything about my past. There are selective moments to share selective areas and segments of each past. I've always been more of a watcher, an analyzer, the person who sits back and quietly studies the room, not because I'm scared. Well, fine, fair. I may be considered as an introvert, but it's because I'm paying attention. I've always loved understanding how things work. People, businesses, power, and the small moments that show you what someone is really made of. And I've been like this for as long as I can remember. I'm the oldest child, and being the oldest child meant I wasn't only raised, I was trained. I followed my parents everywhere so they could work. That's what I saw early: responsibility, pressure, and entrepreneurship in real life. Back then, we didn't have the internet or Google like we do now. We had TV, but honestly, it sometimes bored me. So instead of being entertained, I became educated. I watched my parents. I watched how my mom spoke to people, how she handled problems, how she protected her reputation, how she built her reputation, how she built trust. Before I even knew the word brand, I was watching her build one. And I asked questions. I think it was far too much questions for a little girl. I was never scared to ask why. I was told to suppress it. But here's what happens when you ask questions in a world that loves comfort, right? People don't always call you smart. Sometimes they call you difficult. Sometimes they call you spoiled. Sometimes they say you act like you were born with a golden spoon. Look, I've had that for many years, and for a long time that label followed me. It took me over 20 years to fully understand myself and realize something important. My curiosity was never the problem. My curiosity was actually the reason for growth. And when I realized this, I can see clearly that was the start of my future, my trajectory, vertical growth, as you say. The truth is, curiosity scares average thinking because it exposes what people are avoiding. Here's another thing. I noticed as I grew older, the wealthy see curiosity differently. The wealthy and successful people see curiosity differently. People who are building real businesses, making real moves, making real money, and playing a bigger game, they notice your eagerness. They don't get offended by your questions. They respect it. They lean in. They can feel when someone is hungry to learn. That's when I realized I was in the right path. It's just that average people often don't see potential. They see a threat. Sometimes they feel jealous. Sometimes they act superior. And that's why I'm fine watching instead of reacting. Well, I try to remind myself not to react though, because reacting gives people control over your emotions. Watching gives you control over your next move. But the thing is, this skill of question asking, this skill of growth can be learned. Can be learned through the right guidance, can be learned through the right channels, can be learned through the right circles. Now, let me bring this into real life today. I'm in my 40s, but people often think I'm in my probably in my 20s or early 30s. Sounds like a compliment, right? But it comes with a problem. One of my coaches told me, or my current coach told me, I look like things were handed to me, like life was always easy for me, even though it may not be so. And I remember thinking, you don't see the nights I had nothing. You don't see the struggles. You don't see what I lost. You don't see the breakdowns. You don't see how many times I had to rebuild. You don't see how many times I've fallen. You don't see how hard I had to fight to stand where I stood or stand today. And that's the funny thing about people's opinions. They speak with confidence, but they don't have the full story. There were times in my life where I took the lowest paying jobs. I was a server. I was a musician in the background. I was a cleaner instead of a leader. And let me be very clear. It wasn't because I had no dreams. It wasn't for the money. The money helped. It was because I had a plan. I wasn't there for the pay, right? I was there to learn. I wanted to understand how those industries work from the inside. I wanted to see how managers led, how companies treat staff, what systems work and what systems fail, and how to spot good people versus selfish people. I was studying human behavior because business is not just money. Business is people, and people will either build you or break you. So the questions I ask is not that I'm incompetent. It's because I'm wanting to understand. It's not something where I am not smart. It is because I'm trying to learn and grasp. It's not because I am not a leader. I would sure be able to get a manager's position. But it was because I wanted to know from the real truth behind the scenes that people don't see. My understanding, like in a restaurant in the US, why is it that a lot of local Americans don't give tips to a server? Why are our servers and bussers being paid so low for their hourly rate? And why are they so dependent on tips? How does the system work that protects their workers? Or maybe the systems work to not protect the workers. How can we find balance in your workplace where everyone benefits from it for the growth of the company, of the business? I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm not afraid of starting again. Trust me, I've come home with pains you would not think about where I could just have it easy. I'm not afraid of being underestimated. But I'll tell you one thing I will not tolerate: rudeness, disrespect, people stepping on others just to climb. I watch how others treat the smallest person in the room because that tells me exactly who they are. And if you're listening to this, tune in and listen further. If you think that you are that kind of person, I watch the ones who take credits, the ones who blame others, the ones who act kind in front of the boss, but cruel behind the scenes. And yes, sometimes those people get their way for a moment, but they don't get far. They don't go far. Not long term anyway, because character always shows up eventually. And when I see the kind of behavior, I make it clear. Not with drama, not with shouting, not being on stage, defaming someone. I will share my opinions, but with boundaries, because when someone loses my respect, they lose access. They don't get close to me, they don't get my help, and they don't get to make my life harder. And I'll always back my team too, because real leadership protects people who are doing the right thing. Yes, real leadership protects people who are doing the right thing, whether or not others see it. Now, I see the same pattern in the current life as an international business owner in a new place. It's like you have to prove you're the real deal again and again, over and over. Even when your results are real, people still test you. They still judge. They still watch. And yes, it can be annoying. But I choose to see it as training, as growth, as a test of time. It's not just about building business. It's about solving problems in my own life and handling the people around you with wisdom. So here's the lesson I want you to take from this episode. First, do not judge other people. You don't know what they've been through. Listen, learn, be interested. You don't know what they've lost, but you also don't know what they know. Spoke to a bartender a couple weeks ago. You would think, a bartender is a low-paying job. And who are there? They're probably good for gossip. They're probably good as someone to serve you drinks, so that's why you're nice to them, right? But when I spoke to this particular girl a little bit more, she's shown a couple of lights to me in terms of the background of her many years in the industry as a bartender. And those are things that I wouldn't have learned just being by a business owner, just by being in leadership. Those are things that I wouldn't have known of how she read people in her own way to be able to be in her industry, to be able to be someone that people rely on for an additional shift where need to be, where she has connections. Although she may not be interested in a managing position, who knows of her lifestyle, right? But she had a lot of wisdom in terms of prospects. And that is, people, the key of how you grow your business is by knowing your staff members, those people that are interacting with prospects, those people that are in the forefront of your business and representing your business, to teach them to represent your business well, to teach them to present themselves well, to interact with your prospects and your clients, people that are paying and giving money into business. You help, and that's the one thing that is the biggest for me. You help your staff and they will help your business grow even further than you think. So remember, do not judge other people, and I want you to analyze it through your day. See, who are the people that you are so quick to judge instead of just watching and learning and seeing? Are you just too quick to judge? Or is there more in that person? Now, the second thing I want you to consider is do not let other people's judgment destroy you. Yes, I'm going to say it again. Do not let other people's judgment destroy you. Use it. Turn it into fuel. Turn it into focus. Turn it into your advantage. My rule is simple. Treat everyone as your equal first, then let time do the sorting. People will either stay as an equal, grow into someone you respect and admire, or they will mess up and show you they don't deserve access to you. And that includes clients too. Clients can stay stuck, or a client can grow. If they are willing to grow, your job is to bring them with you, not by tolerating bad behavior, but by setting standards, rising and raising standards, showing them what growth really looks like. For example, I've had people where I think one person said, "Hey, Lorraine, you travel too much, and that's the reason why people don't want to invest in working with you and hiring you as a coach." Do I see that as being offensive? And I remember this same person said when introducing me to new people was, "Oh, by the way, she doesn't like North Carolina." Now, that last piece may not have been necessary. If you're trying to introduce someone, you can either introduce them as a light joke, or you can introduce them as someone that you're trying to help. Right? So when you hear feedback like this, is how to use it to your advantage. Do you react? Or do you learn from it? And then every time you hear something that's similar to that, you change the way you respond. Do you respond as a joke, or do you respond as someone as authority? Now, mind you, I'm also in that learning process because I grew with a business in education. It's all about having things treated fun, because I dealt with a lot of kids, but also educators that dealt with a lot of kids and parents as well. Is how do you communicate where people don't feel so stuck up and so tight, right? So I am also learning to be able to balance between the professional side of being able to interact with kids and being lighthearted, but also the professional side of knowing when to be credible and act credible, but also knowing how to behave of the authority, of someone of authority. Not someone that is mean and sharp and disrespectful, but someone that is intentional. So if you've been misunderstood, you're not alone. If you've been judged, welcome to the real journey. Keep watching, keep learning, keep listening, keep moving, and never forget, people can label you fast, but they can't define you unless you accept the label. And the best thing about it is, although people can label you fast and judge you fast, you have the opportunity of turning around and coming back to building that relationship. Trust me, it has worked. I've met people when getting to know me, they cross their arms, but the more they hear about me, the more they see me around, the more they learn about me, they start being warmer and open to sending me warm referrals, to being an ally rather than someone that has been sharing bad messages about me. So remember, there's always a way around things, but try and be smart about it. And you don't know what you don't know until you try it out. So remember, the 2 tasks is to not judge other people, analyze, and do not let other people's judgment destroy you. If this episode spoke to you, do me a favor. Subscribe, like, and share this with someone who needs it. I want you to also share with us a comment. I don't react, I observe. Or share a story that comes to mind immediately after listening to this episode. So again, this is the Solo to Entrepreneur Show with me, Lorraine Chai, and I'll see you in the next episode.